All right, we come on the air with breaking news at 7 o'clock here in Washington. It is now 2 a.m. in Israel, where it appears a peace deal with Hamas is perhaps on the horizon. Maybe not a peace deal, but certainly a potential ceasefire. Call me cynical, but that would be just in time for the Democratic National Convention. Just in time. Mediators from the U.S. say they are putting the finishing touches on a ceasefire deal that could be announced as early as next week. Here is President Biden earlier today.
And we are closer than we've ever been. I don't want to jinx anything, but as my grandfather said, with the grace of God, good little neighbors, a lot of luck. We may have something, but we're not there yet.
Not there yet, but a peace deal would be monumental in quelling protests that are expected next week at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. They may not fully quell the protests, a deal wouldn't, but it would go an awfully long way. Democrats are terrified that they are going to see similar protests at the DNC to what we saw at a Democratic event Wednesday night in New York. This is warm-ups. With that, we welcome you to the Ferris Show on television. And first tonight, the very first mistake. After 26 days, Kamala Harris's perfect rollout with no interviews, no word salads, and not a single word off the teleprompter, that all ended today. Here she is during her first big policy speech on price controls.
As president, I will go after the bad actors, and I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
All right. We're not talking about her messing up the teleprompter. That's a cheap shot. We don't take cheap shots. And no, bureaucrats in D.C. won't set the price of eggs in Dayton or gas in Las Vegas or apples in Raleigh. At least not yet. But that may not matter. She put us on the road there. And by doing so, Harris opened the door for Team Trump to define her. The press release reads, Comrade Kamala goes full communist. Kamala Harris is set to unveil a government price-fixing scheme today that's more reminiscent of a third world regime than the United States. They aren't necessarily wrong. The nickname, of course, closely resembles the one Trump gave his opponent back in 2016, a name that he kept using all the way up until 2020.
Crooked Hillary Clinton.
Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary. Wait. Crooked, you should lock her up, I'll tell you. Crooked Hillary.
Bad people. Crooked Hillary.
The name Comrade Kamala plays into the public's preconceived notion of an ultra-liberal from California who in 2019 wanted to ban fracking, leave the border open, pass a Green New Deal, confiscate guns, ban private health insurance, and cut police funding. As Catherine Rampel pointed out in the Washington Post opinion column, when your opponent calls you communist, maybe don't propose price controls. It is hard to exaggerate how bad Kamala Harris's price gouging proposal is. It's in the Washington Post. Then she went even further during an interview on CNN.
We've seen this kind of thing tried in lots of other countries before, Venezuela, Argentina, the Soviet Union, etc. It leads to shortages. It leads to black markets.
All right. It sounds good that Harris is going to take on evil big business and their excessive prices and excessive corporate profits, whatever that means and however you define excessive. It's not going to do anything for the price of eggs. To do that, you must cap the price of fertilizer to grow the grain, to feed the eggs, to lay the chickens. You must cap the price of fuel to transport the fertilizer, the grain, and the eggs. You must cap the price of wages for truck drivers, grain farmers, egg farmers, and supermarket workers. But the real question is, if it is so important, if excessive profits is the real problem here, why has she and the Biden administration waited until now? Go back and look. She didn't talk about price controls in 2019. So if, and we will put this in air quotes because it is not our words, it is the Trump campaign's, but if Comrade Kamala loses the election, we will look back on today as the turning point. Corey Lewandowski is with us. He's Trump's new senior advisor for the 2024 campaign, the man behind Trump in 2016 and 2020. Corey, it is good to see you. Thank you. 26 days in, and this is the first shot by the Trump campaign that has landed and started to define Kamala Harris. What took you guys so long, and what's the danger in having let her have a 26-day honeymoon?
Well, Leland, what has happened, as you know, is she has refused to answer any questions. On August 8th, she came out and said she hoped to be able to sit down for an interview by the end of the month on the 31st of August. And so, look, the media has given her a pass. And this is the first opportunity that Kamala Harris has presented herself to the American people since being coronated as the Democratic nominee. She didn't go through the process. She's been coronated. And what does she do? She inserts her foot in her mouth because the American people were led to believe by her that Joe Biden was capable to be the president and run this country, and that she agreed with all of his policies as she served as number two. And now, all of a sudden, she's backing away from the Joe Biden policies, and she's reiterating the fact that she didn't agree with the own policies that she advocated for when she ran for president just 4 short years ago.
All right. We have not given Kamala a pass here for 26 days, and we don't give Donald Trump a pass. We appreciate you being here to answer the questions. You were there in 2016. You helped engineer Donald Trump's ascension all the way through the Republican primaries and did an incredible job that really I think no one thought, or very few people thought, was possible. You were also there in 2020 when things did not work out as well. What are you advising Donald Trump and the campaign to double down on from 2016 that worked and discard from 2020 when it did not?
There are two big differences between the 16 campaign and the 20 campaign. The 16 campaign, Donald Trump was the insurgent, and he used the media in a positive way to articulate his message to the American people and drew those people in. I believe Donald Trump is best when he's in front of the camera, talking directly to the American people. I will encourage him to go and do policy speeches like we did in 2016 at the economic forums so that he is talking about issues that the American people care the most about. Obviously, Donald Trump has been a leader on the issue of Homeland Security and the border. But now that the Kamala Harris Walz team wants to talk about the economy, right, and their dreadful draconian policies that they've implemented in the last 4 years, it gives Donald Trump and our team the opportunity to remind everybody how good it was under the Trump administration. And then when you fast forward to 2020, what the difference was, and I say this because I was there, was they overspent early in the campaign. They spent enormous amount of resources up front, and when it came to battle the campaign at the end, they weren't there. The 2024 campaign is an amalgamation of both. We will have the financial resources. They have run a very lean operation, a very successful operation, and that's been evident by the primary process. Okay. But putting Donald Trump in front of the American people, Leland, is what is the success of the campaign.
Okay. You talk about policy speeches. Obviously, yesterday, the news conference about the economy, he talked about the economy a lot. Had everything laid out in terms of what happens to different goods when it came to prices, a little bit of show and tell. Then he went and gave a speech about anti-Semitism, which is a huge issue in the Jewish community. It's something that is bringing American Jews from Democrats to Republicans. And when he was there, rather than sticking to, I think, a pretty fertile ground to get new voters and to have people engage with him, he said this. Take a listen.
It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's right.
Okay, so he's talking about a congressional or presidential Medal of Freedom that was given to Sheldon Adelson, who's now deceased, and was talking to his wife, a billionaire donor. Forget for a second what he really meant or anything like that. Why, in a time when President Trump is clearly playing defense in the campaign, give the media and give people who don't like Donald Trump an opportunity to say that he compared what a billionaire donor did in an award they received to the most heroic award for valor in America.
You know, it's interesting. When the president awards the honor that only a president can bestow on people, it's not just to the billionaire donor class. We've seen this given to some of those incredible Americans who have achieved the American dream or done something so exemplary that they didn't serve in our armed services. And look, I am a military family. My brother was an active duty Marine for 26 years. My father in Vietnam, my grandfather in World War II. So I don't.
Corey, I just want to be clear. You're doubling down on the idea that the Congressional Medal of Honor is much better than the Medal of Honor. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is better than the Congressional Medal of Honor.
No, Leland, what I'm saying is there are people who deserve to be recognized for their incredible work.
We're not disputing that. But we're just asking why former President Trump said what he said.
But because there are some incredible people who didn't serve in our military, but they should still be recognized with the highest honor that our country has to offer. So there is a path to those military veterans and heroes who have been recognized. But there are a number of great people in this country, from civil rights leaders to pillars of industry, who've been recognized by their president of each party for what they've done on behalf of the American people. And so, look, you can't equate the two directly, because if you're a civilian,
well, he did.
That opportunity. But Leland, what I'm saying is, as a civilian, you can't receive that great honor that only military people can get.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I understand. Bill O'Reilly, who's been very clear that he thinks President Trump will be much better for the country than Kamala Harris will be. Today in his talking points memo, this is what he had to say about where the Trump campaign is right now. Take a listen.
The way to attack the anti-Trump thing is to inject some charm into your campaign. The guy's funny. The guy can be very charming. He knows how to do that. He's got to take a little bit of that and use it on the campaign trail.
Is there something there that the 2020 campaign, especially the 2024 campaign, is a lot more about grievance and anger than the 2016 campaign that was about the future? It was fun. It was insurgent, had totally different atmosphere.
It did. Look, you can never replicate what happened in 2016, but what everybody wants is an individual who's going to espouse where we're going to be in the future. And this election is about two candidates who have a diametrically opposed view of where this country should go. We saw it with Kamala today, talking about price controls. We've seen it with Donald Trump in an economy that he created that was the greatest economy our country's ever seen. So the voters have an opportunity in 80 days, and in many cases less, to put their name and sign a ballot or fill out a ballot to say which direction do we want this country to go. And Donald Trump's inspirational tone, which is what he portrayed in 2016, is going to continue to come through, because the alternative is very devastating for America.
All right. Corey, congratulations on the new gig. We always appreciate you being willing to come in and answer some tough questions. Thank you. We'll see you on the trail, if not before on television.
Thank you. Be safe in Chicago.
Yeah, thank you. There's reason to say that. I appreciate that. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you. You won't hear anything. You're not going to hear a thing about T.J. Brown at the DNC this year. He's a black father now fighting for his life after being attacked at an anti-police protest. Why Democrats will never say T.J. Brown's name. Plus, who is the real Kamala Harris? Why she's actually starting to sound a lot more like Donald Trump than Bernie Sanders. Welcome back. Tonight we have a very simple question. Who is the real Kamala Harris? And to be fair, we don't know the answer to that. Fox tells us she's a left-wing loon based on her 2019 presidential campaign promises, gun confiscation, ending private health insurance, banning fracking, open borders. She talked about all that stuff. MSNBC tells us she's a transformational figure who is heaven sent to save the world from former President Donald Trump and who will bring us freedom and joy. A moderate in the vein of Bill Clinton who will secure the border and lower prices. In fact, she's campaigned on both of those issues. But there is a third option. just like every other politician, she says whatever is necessary to get elected and really doesn't believe anything. In fact, at some points today, she sounded like a Republican.
I will focus on cutting needless bureaucracy and unnecessary regulatory red tape and encouraging innovative technologies while protecting consumers and creating a stable business environment with consistent and transparent rules of the road.
It's like Bill Clinton's 1996 campaign. Suffice it to say, we may never know who she is, and one could argue that that is by design, at least before the election. Harris critics like to call it the 2020 playbook. Michael McFaul, U.S. ambassador to Russia, explained this perfectly. The paramount objective for Kamala Harris is to win this election. If a press conference helps her win, she should do it. If not, she should not do it. It's just that simple. She has no moral obligation to talk to the press. Tone it down, folks. If given the chance, we'd ask Harris a simple, meaningful question. Name a major policy you supported in 2020 that you still support. Think about that. Instead, her campaign is protecting her at all costs. And these are the same people, the very same people, who told us and the rest of the world that while Biden may be looking a little slow, in private he was doing calculus and cartwheels. But we shouldn't be able to talk to Kamala Harris. They're really saying the quiet part out loud now. They believe Harris shouldn't be questioned because the only thing that matters is beating Donald Trump, and her being questioned might get in the way of that, clearly. They're scared. Glenn Greenwald explained it like this. This is the mentality of the U.S. ruling class, stated as explicitly as can be. The only thing that matters is our empowerment. McFaul is part of the ruling class, in case you're wondering. We have no obligation to be accountable to anyone, to explain ourselves to any of you. If we choose to do so, it's only because it's in our interests. Like in the 2020 election, where Joe Biden became anything to everyone, the real Kamala Harris, what she believes in and what she will do, is made irrelevant. Democrats are now treating Harris like they actually fear for democracy. All other principles and past statements about the press and transparency must be pushed aside in the name of helping Kamala Harris win. Her campaign is portraying her like another Democratic trailblazer. And in that sense, Harris is like Obamacare, in the words of Nancy Pelosi.
You've heard about the controversies within the bill, the process about the bill, but we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Yeah, pass it before we figure out what was in it. It worked for Democrats with Obamacare. It worked in 2020. And now you get to decide if it works in 2024. Chris Hahn is here, former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, NewsNation contributor, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. All right, Hahn, before we start arguing, I think we should get just a baseline agreement here. That it is not, Michael McFaul is correct, as a member of the Blob, that it is not in Kamala Harris's best interest to do an interview.
I tend to agree with him. I said before, ride the wave till the wave goes down and then paddle out to get another one.
Okay. You say till the wave goes down. Am I correct in my analysis from our top of the show essay that today may be the time the wave started to go down when the New York Times and the Washington Post both compared her price controls to Venezuela?
Yeah, I don't think the 5% of voters who are going to make up the difference in this election are caring what the Washington Post and the New York Times write today. I don't think that that's how most of them get their news. I think it's an unfair criticism, frankly. I watched her speech today, just as I watched the entire 2-hour rant of Donald Trump yesterday. And I thought what she said was actually quite rational. She wants to find a way to stop price gouging and find a way to have more Americans have access to buying a home. Buying a home used to be the hallmark of the right. And now she's a socialist because she wants to help people achieve the American dream. I guess the only thing left in the Republican Party from Reagan is trickle-down economics. Let's just give tax cuts to the rich, and hopefully it'll work out for the middle class.
Okay.
But it never does.
Couple of things. I don't think the speech wasn't a socialist speech. The price controls were. The buying a home thing was a populist speech. And look, if you want to raise the home prices by $25,000 a home, then just go ahead and give everybody $25,000. That's just the way it works. But you make a good point. About the 5% that's going to decide this election. We'll go ahead and look at the DDHQ presidential forecast. Still, 6 states they have is the true toss-ups. They still have North Carolina as lean Republican. We'll see if that holds when they put up the new forecast with polls. Look at today's speech and you tell me what state she's going to win in because of it.
So I think that this speech is just satisfying an itch to do a little policy before your convention speech, because you don't want your convention speech to be a State of the Union speech, and you don't want people to say she's never talked about policy. The convention speech is really an introduction to the nation. It's got to be aspirational and biographical, and that's really it, with a little policy sprinkled into it. So she gave a little meat on the bones today to give the press something to talk about, which we are clearly doing.
Hold on. Han, I'm just going to stop you
she's going to do
real
the
quick.
campaign.
Okay, you said that she's going to stop price gouging. I've yet to see any meaningful evidence that there is, quote, price gouging going on outside of times after hurricanes and natural disasters, for which there are already copious amounts of state laws to deal with it. So either she is creating a problem to solve because it sounds good in a populist message, or she really does want Venezuela, Soviet Union kind of price wage controls that leads to breadlines and shortages. You pick which one it is.
Well, no, you got to meet the voters where they are, right? And maybe there isn't price gouging.
So you just tell them you're going to do stuff. You're going to tell them stuff that doesn't.
As we often talk about here, the voters do think there is price gouging going on. The American people are the one who are going to determine whether or not there is or isn't.
Isn't it the job of the president of the United States to show leadership? Isn't it the job of the president of the United States to show leadership and say the issue isn't price gouging?
Absolutely.
It's 9% inflation, and here's what I'm going to do to bring that down?
You gotta get elected. You gotta get elected president of the United States before you can lead the United States. And the way you get elected president of the United States is meeting the voters where they are. You get nothing in this country without power, to quote James Carville.
No, I don't know. Maybe I was onto something. You got to pass the bill. To figure, okay, all right, well, I'm not going to argue with Carville. He's the guy who said it was the economist.
Is there a statute of limitation on that clip? Because we have been 2010, man. Come on, let's get some new video.
Wait, it's the economy, stupid? That was 1992.
Oh, I didn't give you the economy, stupid. I said power. That was actually 90. Oh, okay, you're going. Okay, got it. All right, fair enough.
All right, 2010, and no, there's no statute of limitations when someone's still in Congress, the leader of their party, and the one who dethroned the President of the United States. Statute of limitations still holds. It's good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you, too.
All right. President Biden wants to announce a historic Israeli ceasefire deal and hostage deal when he speaks to the DNC on Monday. Why that might not be enough for the pro-Palestinians ready to go crazy.
Donald Trump fights for billionaires and large corporations. I will fight to give money back to working and middle-class Americans. You know, I think that if you want to know who someone cares about, look who they fight for.
Kamala Harris's economic speech sort of defined the themes for the DNC and the Harris-Walz campaign, a shift to populist versus progressive policies. Who knows if that holds after the election? A shift away from the language of DEI while still giving a wink to that crowd. Her online application for campaign jobs reportedly offers 9 different pronoun options. There they are. Mark Halperin is here, premier political journalist, former political director of ABC News, co-author of best-selling books Game Change and Double Down, 2 books that I read as I was getting into politics and political reporting. I still remember, Mark. Thank you for that. And then also the founder of Two Way. It's good to see you. What is the plan, I should say, to celebrate Joe Biden, which it seems like the DNC wants to do and not sort of kick him aside, and at the same time, to borrow a phrase, be unburdened by his legacy and his policies?
Leland, good to see you. I call it the hug and the Heisman all at once, right? She's embracing the Biden-Harris administration, in part because part of the base likes it, and in part because it would be absurd to not say she was part of the administration. But there's also the Heisman part, which is she is distancing herself by proposing some new things and by using subtle language, more of which I expect we'll hear at her convention acceptance speech, to make it clear that she's her own person. We saw Al Gore do this. We saw George H.W. Bush do this. It's tricky. And I think before today, she was off to a good start. I think some of the policies today may land her in some trouble. But the pirouette, the minuet, the Heisman and hug, I think is going pretty well.
Two big differences, right? George H.W. Bush is giving a speech trying to inherit the legacy of Ronald Reagan, who at the time was immensely popular and had done an enormous amount, and people felt great about Morning in America. You had Al Gore trying to inherit Bill Clinton, which was sort of a very popular way of governing in America. You look at what you said about the policies, right? Harris's plans to lower costs, new housing units, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, first ever federal ban on price gouging, went through that a lot, $6,000 child tax credit for newborns. Trump's vision for America included a $5,000 tax credit for children, increase energy production, save Social Security, and Medicare, and they both want no taxes on tips. It almost sounds like this is a populist bidding war. No, $10,000 and no tax on beer.
Well, there's some of that for sure, but there's also the policies that she announced today that are maybe flecked with populism, but are really just big spending, big government programs that are popular with some Americans, to be sure. But for the first time since she took over for Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, I'm hearing Republicans breathing a sigh of relief and saying, maybe there's something to go at here. Maybe finally, by putting meat on the bones, it's going to be easier to convince people she's a San Francisco radical. We'll have to see how it plays out. But and as I said, some of the things she proposed, maybe all of them, are popular with parts of America. But the overall package, the parts that move from populism to big government and big spending, I think it may finally be creating an opening for Republicans to begin to define her.
Yeah, we asked Corey Lewandowski at the top of the show, who's now part of the Trump campaign, 26 days that they allowed her to sort of define herself before finally finding a way in here. Think about the Democratic convention headline speakers: Biden on Monday, Hillary Clinton Monday, Obama Tuesday, Bill Clinton Wednesday, Tim Walz Wednesday, Kamala Harris Thursday. There's a reason that Joe Biden, at least on the schedule, isn't coming out on Thursday to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans.
Well, look, they've got to honor him. That's part of the whole Heisman hug thing. But he'll be out of town, after the first night. And you've seen past conventions like this, where you've got something you need to do for whatever reason. They try to get it out of the way as quickly as possible and move on. And that's what they're doing. The Republican convention, Leland, as you know, was so technically proficient. They really put the bar in a high place. The Democratic team is doing this with the exception of a few other speakers beyond the ones you outlined there. The whole thing is still pretty heavily under wraps, partly because these things are chaotic and last minute, but partly because they've got a secret plan here. And part of that is to honor Joe Biden, but also try to put him in a memory hole by Tuesday afternoon.
You mentioned that Republicans are breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. Kamala Harris is famous for saying there's two ways to run unopposed and 10 points down. Have Democrats that you talk to, are they, shall we say, perhaps a little overconfident after these 26 days, considering that Kamala Harris still isn't anywhere close to where either Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden was at this time in their races?
They'd have to be robots or Vulcans to not feel a little bit giddy over what we've seen for 3 weeks. It's unprecedented in modern American history. And so I think if you're talking about the people who are like David Plouffe, who are counting electoral votes, if you're talking about people who are doing the polling, no, they know that this is a tight race and that they're one bad news cycle or two away from it being perceived as not just equal, but maybe Trump ahead because of his electoral college advantage. So the party as a whole, yes. Exuberance, at least verging on irrational. But the people who are in charge of this, including the vice president, they're not under any illusions. And as you know, she's still saying she's the underdog in the race. That's partly rhetoric. It's partly reality, and she knows it.
All right. Mark, I always learn something when you're on, many things, and it's always a privilege because I grew up reading your reporting, and it's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, young man. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Not many people say that anymore. Thank you. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden hug it out for the world to see. The video's there. It'll happen again. Is this genuine affection or next year's nominee for the Golden Globes?
Symbol of the pride that comes with hard work. It's financial security.
Vice President Kamala Harris earlier today outlining her economic plan. We just heard what she said, touting the benefits of home ownership and affordability. Now we'll get to what she was really saying with her body language. It's harder to lie with that. Body language expert Janine Driver is with us. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Leland.
Welcome in.
Thank you.
She's gotten so much better on the teleprompter. What was that? How was that sort of true emotion, or was that just very practiced oratory?
Well, this is the deal. We don't know what the catalyst is. We can always see the behavior, but we don't know what the catalyst is. It could be, A, the more we do something, the better we get at it. B, more comfortable you get, the more authentic you can be.
Yep.
And we can measure authenticity. Authenticity is stronger than love with energy. They can literally measure it. So the more confident people get, the more authentic they look.
And that looked authentic to you?
That looked authentic, yeah. Now, her hand gestures are coming towards herself a little bit here, and this is when we're holding something in, which is interesting because here she could be saying like, hey, I've had to work hard. But when we're sharing and we're open, our palms are usually out in those situations. So here she was holding in. I think it would have had a bigger impact like this.
Interesting. And yeah, she's sort of almost like grabbing like this, that she's holding on to some kind of idea. So yeah, she's gotten better at this.
Yes.
But how much of this can be, how much of sort of your hand gestures in this can be taught, learned, versus if you're not comfortable, you can't be authentic?
It can be learned for sure. There's a move here called steepling, and this sends the message of power, authority, and confidence. So you're nervous. If you ever hear Leland and you're nervous, throw out your steeple.
I always curl my toes. Nobody can see that.
You have the power. So you can definitely learn it, but authenticity matters, and here's why. When it's authentic for you and the viewers at home, it happens a half beat before the word. So if Kamala Harris here, Vice President, is talking and she's like, I'm really happy, like I want you to imagine if I said, call me. It goes like this. Call me. The gesture comes first, not call me. So when gestures are half a beat after, that's when you know people are
That's when
coached.
It feels a little contracted. There may or may not be sound for this, but this was a pretty remarkable moment. It was the first time we saw a big event with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden since he dropped out. Take a listen.
Yes.
President Joe Biden.
I'm wondering with the pat whether a dagger was being pulled out of him, but I'm more interested in his reaction.
Yeah, I call this the presidential pat down right here. So she does this double pat, right? So this double pat it's more casual, professional, and not warm. We've seen warmer hugs by them definitely in the past. Normally what we see with President Biden is what? A smile here. He always whispers a little something and smiles. There's no smile. The smile forgot to show up on his face here, but she's being very respectful. Keep in mind, it's the first time we're seeing them together, right?
Yeah.
He turned over the torch to her. So this is very professional, casual. It is not warm and loving.
There's no warm.
There is no warmth.
No warmth, excitement.
That double pat?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah, double pat. Oh, we're friends. We're friends, yeah. Donald Trump, there's no time that Donald Trump seems more miserable, at least to someone who's covered him for 10 years, than when he is reading from the teleprompter, or even worse, reading a script that his staff has prepared for him and said, you must read from the script. Here he is yesterday. Take a listen.
Harris has just declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority for her. It's going to be day one. But day one, really, for Kamala was 3.5 years ago.
He's so good off prompter, and he has such great comedic timing. And then you give him a script like that, especially when it's down here and not up here. It's a different guy.
It is. No hand gestures, limited eye contact. What works well for Trump is when the crowd rallies around him, right? When he's riffing off of him, because then that fires him up more for like one of the famous soundbite that we're going to hear. So this, talk about authenticity, this comes across as inauthentic. I bet you his followers are like, dude, put down the binder, just talk to us, because this doesn't fit his vibe. I think that probably hurts him. They'd rather him say something stupid and be in the moment or something that's kind of going to be a meme tomorrow. His followers would much rather that than him. But here's the deal. When we read off a script, it's saying what I have to say is important, and I need to make sure every word I'm saying is being heard. So there's that double-sided.
He doesn't even seem to believe that when he's...
No. He wants to riff so badly. Someone is like huffing him and saying, dude, stick to the script. He does not like it. No, you can tell. Look, the body language. He's so stiff. He's a robot. This is what Tiger Woods looked like when he did that confession years ago. He did this robotic confession. You're like, no one believed him.
Right.
That's this.
Yeah. He's got an impressive list of grievances and is just ready to go. All right. This was a lot of fun.
This was fun.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, winning the White House and losing the Senate will not do much for Democrats' signature issues. Think judges, abortion, and the list. What down-ballot Republicans are doing to try and save the Senate from the Harris effect.
When people know the truth about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, their anti-crime record, their pro-criminal record, the fact that he let rioters burn down the largest city in Minneapolis, I don't think his approval ratings are going to be that high, and I think that Donald Trump and I are going to win this race.
That's J.D. Vance speaking at the Milwaukee Police Association in Wisconsin today. The latest DDHQ poll shows Harris leading Trump in that key swing state, a big change from just a month ago when Trump led Joe Biden. The Biden-Harris switch not only changes the presidential map, but the map for Senate. If Harris wins, Republicans' only hope for a check on Supreme Court nominees, federal judges, and the cabinet is taking control of the Senate. Right now it is 50-50. Harris, as the top of the ticket, makes that a lot harder for Republicans. Take Wisconsin, for example. Senate incumbent Tammy Baldwin widened her lead over Trump-endorsed candidate Eric Hovde after Biden dropped out of the election. Republican Wisconsin senatorial candidate Eric Hovde is with us now. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Have you had to change? Yeah, thank you. Change, retool now that there's been a switch?
No, not at all. We're going to continue to focus on the issues. They drove the prices of all goods, groceries, cost of fuel, housing costs. Look at your car insurance bill. All of that is a direct result of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris's policies, and Tammy Baldwin, who's one of the most extreme leftist senators. I think she's voted the second most liberal senator. Kamala Harris was the first, and Tim Walz was considered the most liberal governor. So, no, you just continue to talk about the issues. Look, the media is all hyping this up, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of these polls are manipulated by the Democrats. I feel really good about this race, but look, to all your viewers, we're fighting for the soul and the future of our country. And if they win, it will be devastating. Look at the damage that they've done over the last 3.5 years. So we have to win, and Wisconsin is ground central.
No, you've made a powerful point when it comes to the issues. It's not what most people normally start with, which is refreshing. There's been an issue by Tammy Baldwin made out of what you have said about single mothers. I want to be clear with our viewers. We're going to play Tammy Baldwin's attack ad and then your ad that is with a testimonial from your wife. Take a listen.
Sure.
Eric Hovde thinks if you have a single mom, you're going to be poor or a drug addict?
That is a direct path to a life of poverty. It leads to higher drug rates.
That just shows Eric Hovde is ignorant. Senator Baldwin, your dirty campaign has gone too far. Your latest attack on my husband is about single mothers. I was a single mom when I met Eric. It was hard. Eric saw the difficulty I faced just trying to afford childcare.
You think they knew that was coming when they launched the attack?
No, I mean, it's so ridiculous. What they constantly do is try to clip this amount out of a longer explanation. And all they've done is gone into the gutter from day one and make up things and make up lies. And what you didn't show at the end of my wife's ad was her talking about the fact that I've actually, through my foundation, have built housing and provide assistance to single mothers here in our state. But they don't want to talk about that. Again, she has no record to run on. She can't run on the economy. She can't run on the fact she opened our borders. She can't run on the fact that she supports boys playing in girls' sports, or that she gave all our taxpayer dollars to through.
Why do you think she's going to the DNC?
Well, because again, you got a perfect trifecta.
Actually, forgive me. She is going to the DNC. It's John Tester and Sherrod Brown who are not. Kamala Harris is undoubtedly more popular. I'll give you the last 30 seconds. By going to the DNC and embracing her, she rides her coattails. That helps her, does it not?
I don't think so. And Tim Walz hurts her in the state of Wisconsin because we've had a lot of Minnesotans leave Minnesota after the riots that he let happen and after his COVID lockdowns. And then he signed this bill that if a child wants to transgender themselves, a child, and the parents oppose, the child can be taken away from them. And that's the same thing Senator Baldwin gave money to a transgender affirming clinic that does that too without parents' notification. So these people are all crazy out there on almost every aspect.
All right. Mr. Hovde, we appreciate you joining us. We'll keep following your race. Obviously, Senator Baldwin's welcome anytime, but we're glad to have you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's the weekend. Spend it with people you love away from politics. See you Monday night from Chicago.